Hello everyone, my name is Zach, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're doing well today. Today we're going to go on a little bit of a journey together. I have no idea how this video is going to turn out or where it's going to go, but welcome, we're going on a journey together. I wanted to talk about characters today because I had a recent experience that made me kind of think about how I judge and think about characters, and I feel like if I'm going to be an honest book reviewer, I kind of need to share some information with you. But before we get to that, I have to tell you the story of how and why I started to think about this. A quick disclaimer, I am going to talk about Six of Crows in this video, but it's going to be spoiler free, so if you haven't read it, you'll be fine, but also, like, what are you doing? You need to get on it. But anyway, let's start with the story. So on Twitter, Angela, who I believe goes by Blonde with a Book, posted this. And I thought that was pretty funny, and it was something I very much agreed with, so I retweeted it saying, truth. And Ali Corvier and Jordan Harvey did not take too kindly to me attacking their boy Matthias, even though I didn't actually at the time, I just retweeted something and agreed with it. So I decided to go on a snark-fueled rampage, roasting their boy and roasting them. I pointed out that Ali Corvier had said something mean about Matthias in the past, and she pointed out correctly to me that that was within a specific context that I was ignoring, which I did on purpose, to be honest. I'm not going to say what exactly she said because I want you to check out the tag video linked below in the description in which she said things, so go watch it because Ali's my girl and you need to support her channel if you don't already. So I also clowned on Jordan a little bit, saying Matthias would make a good breakfast chef because he flip-flops so much he can cook good pancakes. It was a genius joke, I know. I kind of felt bad after this whole exchange. I felt like I was being so snarky, I was kind of bordering on asshole-ish. So I ended up reaching out to both of these ladies and kind of apologizing. And they both said it was cool. They knew it was just kind of Twitter banter and they weren't actually upset with me. So sorry if you wanted the tea. There's no tea here, at least not between me and these two ladies. But I am thankful for their patience and forgiveness because I still kind of feel like I was being a jackass. But at the end of this whole exchange, I did have the good grace to kind of extend an olive branch and write something that was a bit more true and objective. And so I started to write this tweet. So I started off by admitting that I knew of the 6 characters in Six of Crows, Matthias is probably the best and objectively and literarily the most well-written character. All the characters in Six of Crows are battling something. Most of them are battling kind of PTSD, there's some like addiction in there. But the thing that Matthias is fighting is ideology. The thing that makes him such an interesting character is that fighting addiction and PTSD, uniformly, everyone is behind you. Everyone wants you to overcome your PTSD. Everyone wants you to overcome your addictions, except maybe corporations that make millions off your addictions, but that's a rant for another day. But the thing about ideologies and fighting an ideology is that when you fight an ideology that you're in, you lose friends and family most of the time. The people who you were in this ideology with are not going to take very kindly to you suddenly realizing that you don't agree with what they had to say anymore. This struggle of Matthias picking between kind of his past family and friends in this ideology and his new family and friends outside of his ideology is what makes him such a compelling, conflicted character. It's also why I don't like him very much. I really hate people that are hardcore into their ideologies like Matthias is at the start of the duology. I think a huge problem with society, specifically American society, but I feel like most developed countries are also guilty of this, is the kind of identity politics, us versus them mentality. I hate the fact that because you don't use their buzzword or you don't identify as the same thing as them, suddenly we're enemies and we can never have any common ground. And I use books as an escape to get away from crap like this. I face this every day on social media when I step onto my college campus. I am constantly bombarded with identity politics. People think Republicans are the devil. People think liberals are delicate snowflakes that want to ruin society. You know, it's just... Will y'all stop yelling? The thing for me is I usually end up liking some things that every side says. That's why I tend not to identify as any particular ideology, because I'd rather listen to whatever arguments you're making and pick out points to say, I like that point, I could argue that point, I'm not so sure about that point, you might want to rethink it. I love free thought. So going into a book where I'm trying to escape these identity politics, to suddenly have someone who is hardcore into an ideology is like my worst nightmare. It's just like, oh no, oh god, oh, he showed up in my book, no! And again, the thing that makes me dislike him is the thing that makes him objectively a well-written character. On the flip side of this whole issue, you have characters that are not really the deepest or most well-written characters, but they're also the characters I love the most, specifically Wylan and Inej. I think with Inej, you could argue she's even kind of a Mary Sue, even though she does do, morally bad things in the book. She's not bad at heart, she feels regret, and even though she struggles with some things, she's also really good at, just about everything she does in the book. However, I really identify with Inej, that strive to see the good in people, that strive to be the best at what you do and never let your friends down, is something I strive for in life. That's why I love her so much. Inej is the kind of person I want to be, minus being that whole deadly assassin thing. I could do without that. Same thing with Wylan. Actually, I think his name's pronounced Willan, but I'm going to keep saying Wylan because that's the kind of person I am. The thing about Wylan is that he is struggling with something that most people take for granted. And I don't want to spoil it here, but if you've read the book, you obviously know what I'm talking about. And he still, even though he's faced with a huge challenge in his life, he still looks for positivity. He still tries to see the good in people. He still does everything else he can to the best of his abilities. Again, that's something I strive for. That's something I want to be. So I really love Wylan and identify with him for that reason. Is he the deepest character? Does he have the biggest arc of any of the characters? No. Again, he's probably one of the weaker characters from an objective literary standpoint. But again, I don't really care, and I still really love these characters, and that kind of started a bit of a thought train, which led me to making this video. Because I think you maybe can't trust my opinions when it comes to characters in my reviews. Let me clarify that statement. If you come to my videos wanting my honest opinion, my honest thoughts, my honest feelings, I will always give those to you. 100% guaranteed every time. No matter how popular or unpopular my opinion is, I will give it to you straight every time. However, you will notice I used thoughts and feelings. And this is where there's kind of a bit of cognitive dissonance. I like to pride myself on being sort of analytical and objective when it comes to reviewing a lot of things like world building, things like plot. These kind of things I try to apply the theory I've learned about storytelling to try to really appreciate or really identify the flaws in a story. I don't really do that when it comes to characters, and I think if that's what you're wanting, maybe take my opinions of characters with a grain of salt. Granted, I have the ability to analyze characters objectively. I'm able to identify want versus need, character arc, static versus dynamic. All these kind of literary terms that you use for character analysis, I know and have the ability to apply, as I feel like I just demonstrated by talking about the 3 characters from Six of Crows. But I don't do it that often. I think for me, a lot of the reason is that because I try to review and look at books objectively in so many other parts of the story, characters tend to be my emotional tie to the story. They're the reason I get invested in a story. I'm not really a character reader per se, but characters tend to be the reason why I don't just kind of go, it was good. If I'm going to rave about a book, if I'm going to love a book, it's probably because of a character that I identify with, that I like, stuff like that. Again, though, that character might not be good. And there might be good characters that I rant about and hate the book because of it. Perfect example, Frankenstein. Victor Frankenstein? Oh my god. From a literary standpoint, Victor Frankenstein is actually super well written, super interesting, super important. He has a character arc, which the graph of his character arc kind of resembles my will to live during a college class. Just... But he has kind of a tragic flaw. His ego and his arrogance lead to his downfall, lead to his change, where he goes from kind of smug, top of the world, to losing basically everything. And again, that ties into the theme of the story, where basically Mary Shelley was writing a book saying, hey, don't be that guy. Instead of trying to create life in a lab and having a god complex and being just a real jerk, why don't you go home to your lady, maybe make her dinner, sit with her and talk with her, and maybe if you're lucky and you treat her right, she'll take you in the bedroom and you can create life there like a normal person. So even though I can identify that, yes, Victor Frankenstein is objectively a great character, I hate him so much. He never does anything right, and he is the biggest dumbass ever. Like, if I had a tier list of annoying characters, Victor Frankenstein is S rank alongside with Jazz Brashear from Artemis by Andy Weir, which, she's a story for another day. But you hopefully get the point. On the flip side, again, I think there's a character like Van Helsing from Dracula. I think you could actually kind of make the argument that he's really not super interesting as a character. He doesn't really change, and his motivation isn't super well explained, and that's why he's fascinating to me. Van Helsing has this drive, this insatiable thirst. He's constantly acquiring knowledge, he's constantly planning, he's constantly trying to outthink, and he never seems to sleep, which is just crazy. And part of me just loves that about him. What drives him? Is it dedication to his friend? Is it something that happened in his past that we're not told about? I don't know, and that's why I love him. He is absolutely relentless. But again, does he change much? No, he's kind of a flat character. He enters the story as a focused, relentless man who constantly acquires knowledge that you're not really sure how he gets it, and he remains that way through the majority of the story. He's a flat character. He doesn't really have a flaw. But I still find him fascinating, so I really enjoyed his character. Also in the audiobook, if you get the audiobook from Audible, he only has like 4 lines, but they're read by Tim Curry, so like, that helps because your boy is a sucker for Tim Curry. And one last thing, I might as well admit while I'm here talking about characters, I don't hate Mary Sue's. Again, I get why they're really not interesting and why like you can write a far more interesting character, and don't get me wrong, don't purposefully write a Mary Sue because you are going to get dragged through the mud as an author. But if a character comes and some people are saying, oh, it's the Mary Sue, I just kind of go, okay. One example of this is the main character from Feed, which I've seen argued as a Mary Sue. But Georgia Mason is kind of a sarcastic asshole. And in high school especially, I was a sarcastic asshole, and most of my friends were sarcastic assholes, and my sister, who's one of my best friends on this planet, is kind of a sarcastic asshole, so like, I love Georgia Mason. Does she have huge flaws besides not being a people person and being kind of difficult to work with? Not really. Does she have like a super well-made arc? Not that I remember. Do I love her? Yeah, I do. I even like the most notorious Mary Sue of all time, Rey from the new Star Wars trilogy. Is she a Mary Sue? Yes. Okay. I still enjoy the fact that for once in my lifetime, you have a female character who's the main part of the story, who's kicking ass, who's not in a super skimpy, super tight, or super revealing outfit, who still emotionally struggles, who still has to fight for the things she wants. Yeah, is she super flawed? Does she have a super character arc? No. Do I care? Not really. If that whole speech made you angry, know from here on out, never trust a single thing I say about characters unless I say something that you know is objective. So, I guess that's all. I just kind of went off for however long I went. This is probably going to be a long-ass video. I'm sorry. Hopefully this is somewhat entertaining, but I felt like as a reviewer, when I had that realization the other night, following that Twitter conversation, I realized something about myself, and I feel like that impacts my reviews. So I did feel the need to come on and tell you about it, and I hope you understand, and, I hope that helps you better understand my reviews, and put my reviews to better use for yourself personally, and, yeah. So that is all from me today. It was probably way too much. But if you like this video, if it made some sense to you, please give it a thumbs up. Feel free to subscribe if you feel so inclined. And I will see you next time.